And the reason we're talking about Brock Purdy is because of Ryan. No one saw this. This lady, I forget her name. Was it? I'll find it. Lori Epstein. She writes for Yahoo and put together an article about Brock Purdy's latest interview, which he did for a few people. And the 7th paragraph, she just casually mentions, like, he still, quote, says he isn't really sure, honestly, if he'll play in 2023, but, he's taking it one day at a time and he's encouraged. And Ryan texted me and Jesse yesterday morning and was like, why is no one talking about this?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good question. So we started talking about it all day and we slept on it. And now it's time to talk about it a little bit more because it's interesting that it didn't get bigger. It's not bigger news. And I think the reason it's not bigger news is it's not what the Niners said. Trying to find English words here. It's pretty much, he contradicts the 49ers. And a lot of people, journalists, go with whatever the Niners tell them to go with. So they were told a couple of weeks ago, hey, man, he could be back for training camp. Now all of a sudden he says, I'm just taking it one day at a time, and I don't know if I'll be back at all this year. And I think journalists, like, their heads exploded. They're like, well, I'm getting two different stories here. To me, this feels like the real deal because it's coming from the horse's mouth. What do you think about this?
Yeah, man, I bet the 49ers aren't thrilled that he said that. He probably didn't mean to say it. Probably just came out in conversation. It's definitely not, there's a lot of journalists, a handful that, they know that the rest of the world knowing this is not good for the 49ers. And so they avoid that kind of stuff, right? This is not what they want to get out.
He went off script. He went off script. But he was being honest. It's the most honest thing anyone said about this guy. We don't know. He's taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. And if nothing else, this is what I've been saying is I don't think he's going to be there for week 1. Like, if nothing else, week 1's kind of out of the question. If you don't even know if you're going to play at all next year, then week 1 is definitely, to me, out of the question. He's probably going to be on the PUP list at minimum, if not IR.
Let's explain that. Let's go through it real quick. So I pulled that up. Cut down date is August 30th. Mm-hmm. That's when he's got to be cleared. And if he's not fully cleared by August 30th, he starts the season on the PUP list, which means he has to miss the first 4 games. Yeah. So I think, he had the procedure on March 10th. 6 months after that is September 10th. So it's supposed to be 6 to 8 months, the recovery. Earliest it seems he will be on PUP, coming back week 5. But if he's cleared week 5, that means no OTAs, minicamp, training camp, preseason, nothing. Also, no practice or anything the first 4 weeks of the season. You're telling me he's going to be ready to start week 5? I doubt it. He's probably going to have to practice and get ramped up. And it's hard to get a quarterback prepared to play midseason. So when he says, I'm not really sure if I'm going to play this year, I get it. Because he probably won't even be activated until week 5. And at that point, will he be ready? Will Trey Lance be playing well? Will Sam Darnold be playing well? Like, it's really, who the hell knows?
Yeah. And if Trey Lance is playing well, why would you even want to rush back? You might as well take your sweet time and just make sure you're 100% healthy. All your muscles, your back, your arms, everything is ready to go. You're prepared. So, PUP list to me is at minimum. Like, it's possible he starts on the IR. It really is. So, it's surprising that this wasn't bigger news. I don't know why she that should have been the title of her article. Maybe she didn't want to give that effect, like a gotcha moment or something like that, or a clickbait type title. But it's really not. People were so mad at you and I for reporting this. Like, all we're telling you is what Brock Purdy said himself from the horse's mouth. It's not like we're telling you he's not going to play next year. He said he might not. And that's big, big news.
Someone in that interview should have followed up when he said he's not really sure, honestly, if he'll play in 2023. Excuse me, Brock. You just said you're not really sure if you're going to play in 2023. Could you just say what you mean by that? Because that's big. A big revelation.
Yeah.
Give him an opportunity to explain himself. Because right now, we're having to do the explanation, and it makes me. It seems like the right thing for him to do, and I could see why the Niners would be a little upset, because from Kyle's perspective, quarterbacks are completely disposable and replaceable, and I'm sure he thinks that Brock isn't that special, and now he's acting like he has to protect himself and that he's a commodity. It's like, dude, you were nothing 6 months ago, but you know what? Brock is a commodity now.
Yeah.
And he has to protect himself and his future because Kyle won't. And you can ask any number of quarterbacks about that.
It sounds like he has a really good team around him, instructing him to do the smart thing, the right thing, and think about your long-term career, regardless of what pressure from either the fan base or the 49ers. Screw that, man. Make sure you're 100% healthy. That's the right thing to do. It's very mature of him to do that. It sounds like he has a good team around him. But there's a lot of implications from this, right? Like when they signed Sam Darnold, my thoughts were, okay, this is a hedge against Brock Purdy's injury. Everyone's like, no, this means they don't believe in Trey Lance.
Right.
Well, based on this news, this really does kind of show you that this is about they're unsure whether Brock Purdy's going to play at all next year. And if he does come back, will he be the same? So Sam Darnold was a hedge against Brock Purdy's injury. It wasn't about Trey Lance. Trey Lance isn't getting traded. They cannot afford to trade Trey Lance right now. They need Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, and whatever rookie they're going to end up drafting. And they're going to draft one.
Right. And again, we don't even know if Brock Purdy's ever going to be the same. The only other quarterback who ever had this procedure is Nick Mullins, and he's not a starting quarterback. We don't really know what he is or if he's better or worse than what he was before the injury. We do know, though, that he had his procedure in January. He played in the preseason, was awful, got waived, eventually started a game during the pandemic because of COVID outbreak, and it was week 15, and he still struggled. I mean, he was throwing a lot of short passes. Finally, last year, he seemed like himself again. So it's possible that although Brock Purdy could get cleared week 5 or week 7, that he really won't be Brock Purdy again until 2024. And if that's the case, like, why is it in his interest to rush back on the field with no preparation at 70% and look bad? I mean, no one would give him the benefit of the doubt. His stock would just drop. So I think it's more in his interest to take it slow, come back when he's really ready, and show that those 8 games weren't a fluke. Because if he comes back and looks shaky, people will think, you know what? He's not that special. It was a flash in the pan.
And there's two things. Like I expect Brock Purdy and the 49ers to walk back those comments coming soon before the draft. I expect them to walk that back a little.
Brock Purdy?
Either Brock
the
Purdy
Niners.
or the 49ers.
Yeah, the Niners.
One of the two, walking that back before the draft because they're going to have to go get a quarterback. And this is really unfortunate for Brock Purdy. I really just hope he can get back to just be 100% of the guy that we saw before because he hasn't got paid anything. And based on what he's done, he deserves to get paid more. And I hope he gets a second contract. He gets back to 100% and he's the same guy. That would be very unfortunate. Brock Purdy never does, but I think he will at some point. It's just when.
I remember Brock Purdy's the guy who who said that George Kittle talks too much on national television. This guy is not a shrinking violet. He stands up for himself. So I think we're going to see, this is going to be an interesting story because the Niners came out and basically spoke for him, which is a no-no. Remember, Harbaugh would never do that.
Yeah,
I'm not in his body. Former player, very sensitive about that kind of stuff. John, another former player, not so sensitive about it. Kyle, not sensitive at all. They'll come out and be like, oh, he's doing great. He's ahead of schedule. It's like, okay, well, what's the player say? He's the one actually doing the rehab. And what he said is, I'm just taking it one day at a time. This is uncharted territory.
We've heard 3 things. John Lynch, he'll most likely be ready for week 1. Kyle Shanahan, 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
Brock Purdy, I don't know if I'm playing next year.
Again, 8 months. 8 months from March 3rd from March 10th is November 10th. So it is super possible that he does not play at all this year. And you know what? If he's special and he needs a year to get back, then him sitting out a year is the best thing for him and the organization.
Yeah. And a lot of that's going to, like you said, we talked about earlier, how are the 49ers doing? How's Trey Lance doing? If they're playing well and balling out, then there's no need at all for even the 49ers at that point to want to rush him back.
Also, the more they push Brock to come back soon, the less it makes me feel like they really think he's special. You know, like if Kyle thought, wow, yes, I struck gold here. I just got freaking Tony Romo, Drew Brees. Like, dude, I got a lifetime contract here. I'm Kyle Shanahan. Like, let's chill. I mean, Jed's not going to kick me out. But if his attitude is, dude, I don't know who the hell you think you are. You are a 7th round pick. You're a football player. If you're healthy, you got to get on the damn field. And if you're not good enough, I'll replace you again because I don't think you're that special. That's if they force him back out there, it's Kyle saying again, dude, you're just young, cheap Jimmy. Don't get that into yourself. And that's totally Kyle's MO. So again, Brock, be your own advocate here.
Here's the thing: is like when I watched Brock Purdy, and I was one of the few, honestly. I was just really watching what he was doing. To me, he seemed like he was good. Like he was a good player, top 15 type potential. But I didn't see all this other stuff that a lot of people are seeing. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan did either. I think he thinks
Right.
Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, and
Right.
they lucked out. But I don't think they see an elite quarterback. I don't
John
think so.
might. But John thought Jimmy Garoppolo was elite. I don't think Kyle Shanahan does. Kyle Shanahan is like us. He saw through Jimmy Garoppolo. He also thinks he's the star of everything. So I couldn't imagine that he went from looking at Brock Purdy as the next Nick Mullins to the next franchise quarterback. Kyle doesn't change his mind like that. Yeah. So if Brock Purdy wants to protect himself and look for the future, Kyle could all of a sudden be more into Sam Darnold or Trey Lance. He could go back, or someone in the draft. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that dance goes down. Khalil says, when did Nick Mullins play preseason? With the Eagles in 2021. They signed him for training camp. He played in the preseason, and he was awful, and they waived him. Then he got signed by the Browns and was on their practice squad. So that's the story there. So that's the latest on Brock.